Passion for nature and passion for music, I believe, go together. And you, Saleel, are an example of that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I'm happy to be talking to you today. I believe you are an IT professional, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
But interested in wildlife photography. And you are also a tabla player of repute who have been playing in international circuit.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So I would like to know about your journey so far.
No, thanks for all the good words that you used, and so kind of you to pay attention to all the details in my file. But let me very humbly tell you that, yes, what you said, profession is right. I am into IT because that has been my background. I am an engineer by my education and also an MBA. So that's the profession side of it. And I had been working in most of the corporate companies all these years. And earlier I worked in India, and then I moved to UK about 20 years ago. So all my life has been into IT and technology. And on the other side, although you said tabla playing of international repute and all that, but let me be very honest that I'm still a student of music, because music is such a vast field that whatever you do, it is still every day there is so much more to learn. And the more you learn, more you realize that you are still very novice in this field and there is a lot to do. So when you see big pundits and stalwarts and our guru kind of people, then you feel you are nowhere yet. There is a big journey to go ahead. So this is true that being in the UK, I play a lot of concerts with quite a few reputed musicians and I collaborate a lot. But in principle, I think that music is something that I keep learning every day, keep practicing every day. And that comes like a journey. It's not a destination or it's not a portfolio for me. It's just an everyday thing that you get, like you in Hindi, you call it sadhana. So it's a continuous effort to improve yourself. And that is what I'm trying. In terms of wildlife, I had been lucky that I came in contact with some of the very good people from forest department and photography in my earlier life. And that actually inspired me to get moving towards wildlife, outdoors, birds, animals. And this is where the love for wildlife and nature, as it triggered me more as a natural history rather than photography. Photography came much later. And I still don't like to call myself a wildlife photographer per se, but I would prefer to call myself a nature lover. Photography is just a medium to reach nature. So it's not something that is my kind of key attention when I am in nature or wildlife. Photography is just, it comes along, but the main driver for all this love towards nature is the fascination with nature. So that's how it is.
Recently, I saw on Facebook a short video you had put about butterflies with tabla in the background. It was beautiful.
Yeah. So
if you send me an MP4 file, I would like to use it in the video.
Yeah, anytime. You are most welcome, because nature is something which has joy of sharing. If I have seen something in the field, it brings more joy when I bring it back home and share with a lot more people who are not with me. So they can also enjoy and they can also appreciate what I've seen in the nature. And this is the way a wildlife photographer's camera can bring things to people who are not there or who haven't seen that kind of natural history which is witnessed by the photographer. So definitely you are most welcome to use it. And I always find a connection between nature and music. Both of them are like, the more you explore, the more interesting they become. So I always like to do those kind of videos.
Your photographs of birds in some of the islands which surround London, they were also fascinating.
Good that you mentioned gannets. So there is a big rock near Edinburgh, which is the coast side of Scotland. And this bass rock is the world's biggest sites where these gannets gather for their breeding. So these are pelagic birds. That means rest of the year they are only in the sea and you don't get to see them much. You get to see them only when they come to the land for breeding, they build the nest. And this rock has such a big, dense population of birds that when you're away from that rock and approaching in a boat towards that island, the whole island looks white.
Any other experience which is equally fascinating?
Yeah, there is another island close to this island, which is called Farn Island. And these Farn Islands, again, they host lots of puffins in the breeding season. And you must have seen puffins in pictures or in movies. So they are very
in pictures only, because they are not
very
there in
cute,
India.
They are very cute kind of birds, and people like them with their beak colors and all. And surprising is that they build their nests there, and they are again in thousands and millions. Really, not thousands is much very understatement, but they are in millions. And they dive into the water, and once they dive, it is so surprising to see that each puffin in each dive catches about 20 or 25 sand eels in its beak. I mean, even if we put our fish net in the water, we won't be able to catch that many eels in one go. But it is so surprising to see that a bird, without having any hands or any catching mechanism, just with its beak, it just dives inside and catches at least more than 10 eels, sand eels every time. Each bird makes about probably 50, 60, 70 dives a day. So you can imagine the amount of sand eels they catch and feed their young ones. There are terns there as well, terns which are migrating from Arctic areas and more colder areas for breeding. So as you are walking, they are so aggressive that they sometimes peck on your head. And if you are not wearing a cap there, they are so aggressive that they might hit in your skin as well there.
Okay. Any experience of photographing wildlife in the urban world, urban wildlife?
Oh, it's a very good. Yeah. It's a very good point you said. And are you talking of UK or you're talking of India or any place?
UK. Talking about UK. Since you are living there.
I'll not, but I have a few very good urban experiences from India as well. But because we are focusing on UK, I can quote some of the experiences.
You can say both.
Sorry?
You can say experiences from India also.
Okay, I'll share that later. So, talking of UK, when you come to central London, right, very heart of London, you will be so surprised to see fox being an animal which is in every household. In the heart of a metro, I could see foxes moving around in the backyard of the houses, and I was really surprised. So I was excited and I said, "Oh, fox!" And my neighbors and people around say, "Oh, it seems like you haven't been to London before. The foxes are very common here." And then in last 20 years, I've seen so much of coexistence between fox and people here. They're a part of human lives here. They come in and out of the backyards in the houses. They are used to open the bins, the garbage bins, and take what they want. So this is an example of adaptation of wild species into the urban life. Same way, if we see some of the churches and some of the old buildings, they are occupied by bats or owls. And because people there always go for religious purposes and there is no disturbance there, no undesired interference there, that's why these wildlife species can thrive very well there. And you won't believe, I have a picture that I'll share with you. The fox has laid pups in my backyard. So there is a pile of wood which we gather for barbecues near my garden shed. And the fox has happily brought her younger generation there out of that place, which is so good to see. Even, and good thing about London or UK is that in spite of the urban density of houses and residential areas, there are some gardens or there are some open lands left as it is, untouched. So they are as good as very tiny wildlife sanctuaries in the middle of residential areas. So these are very good patches to see some birds, some butterflies, even some badgers. And it's a very good idea that when lots of people are living around, you leave a patch of nature between them untouched, so that they come for dog walks, they come for fresh air in the morning, walks, and also it's really proving like lungs of the urban land. So that's where the whole ecology can be witnessed. And I've seen badgers just within 10 meters of my house in the night.
I was very surprised to read recently that some survey has shown Britain to be last among all the 14 countries in Europe as far as nature connectedness is concerned. Did you read that report?
No, I have not read that report, but I have heard something similar from people around.
I was quite surprised to see that.
Yeah. So one thing here that you always see is this is a country where you don't see any predator animal, like in the category of like tigers, lions, or hyenas, or the ones which are more stronger predating animal. This country lacks any kind of very strong predator. Probably the only predator that you see is, like I mentioned, fox, which is totally urbanized, or maybe badgers, but you won't see any big cats here. No jaguars, no leopards, whereas leopard is the most adaptable cat, but in the UK you don't see that. So here the pyramid of prey and predator works very differently than a country like probably India or Africa or even South America. So there the predator is at the top of the pyramid, the food chain, and there is a kind of a sequence of predation between those stages of predation. And here you don't get to see that. So here the wildlife survival is completely different from what you see in a normal tropical country.
That is true. But talking about nature connectedness again, I thought that London people are very much aware of wildlife, and they're doing a lot of things to make people conscious about the wild, like the London Wetland Center, for example, right in the middle of London.
Yes.
The interpretation centers they have in the Natural History Museum. They do a lot of outreach work. But in spite of that, why is London ranked lowest in nature connectedness?
I can say two things here. One is that one very good thing that you see in all the nature reserves across the UK is the quality and quantity of information available. Right? If you go to any smaller nature reserve, you will find very nice posters, videos, leaflets, and maps, and information about species and various times of the year, how it changes. And so there is no lack of information. Probably it is the best that I have ever seen in the world anywhere. The amount and the way the information is shared with any layman or even a child visitor, it's very good. And on the point that you mentioned, probably one of the influencing factors is that London is also very much influenced by people doing jobs in big financial firms and audit firms and there is a big population which is a kind of a working population which works in shifts and like transport and all. So the kind of life that these people live, they don't get much bandwidth to get connected with nature, right? They have their own lifestyle which puts a different, I won't say that they are not interested, or I won't say that they are not keen on that, but their lifestyle orients around the financial lifestyle and the lifestyle of a consultant working in financial industry. So they're always like in that kind of a atmosphere. So they don't really get to go out and get connected with something that's around them. Or even people like who are working on odd hours on transportation and in transport, or maybe some kind of a van based traffic, or they are driving for hospitals. They are always in their kind of routine, which doesn't let them go out in spite of wildlife being very close to them. So
I think
this
you are
is
right
this could be
about
one of the reasons that I could guess that. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Yes. Coming back to music, how do you find time for music and photography and your work?
I've been asked that question so many times, and sometimes I ask this question to myself, that how to find time for it. I feel that when you got interest in something, it could be any hobby, it could be painting, it could be not just wildlife or music, but it could be like cycling, or it could be even running. So I've seen that people who are really, really interested, they can manage their 24 hours in a well-organized way. Because most of the time we feel that if we are aware of what we want to do in those 24 hours, probably we can prioritize a few things. So let's see, if you prioritize your 8 hours of work in the office, outside of that, you still got lot many hours to organize. And if you really prioritize your activities, I think you definitely get time for your interests. Like I'll tell you, if I come back from office and if I say to myself that I'm very tired now, I don't feel like doing anything, it was a stressful day, and for 2 hours, if I'm just going to sit on a sofa and do nothing, instead of that, if I pick up my tabla and just play it for 10 minutes, it's far more refreshing for me than to just sit for 2 hours trying to unwind from the stress that I might have had for the day. So this is the kind of prioritization. Or maybe I go for some butterfly watching in nearby patch. So that might be more refreshing for me than just to keep sitting and saying, oh, I'm very tired for the day. Or suppose if I'm waking up one of the days a bit earlier in the morning, I've got half an hour extra, I can go to a nearby pond and watch a sunrise there. Why not? And this I have been doing a lot. That if I have enough sleep, instead of just being in the bed for half an hour more, I can get off the bed and go to watch a sunrise. Why not? So it's just a question of preferences over what we think is influencing our everyday routine.
Right. Right.
And it's like practicing what is called riyaz in Hindi.
Yeah.
I don't think we should have an excuse that like we eat, like we drink, like we shower, like we sleep. It should be a part of the life. So even if I do 10 minutes, 15 minutes of riyaz every day, that's more valuable than not doing it and then doing 2 hours of riyaz after 15 days. So those are the kind of things that make time management more easier.
You're really inspiring me. Because I used to
This is a field where people should inspire each other.
No, I really hope you inspired me to start some riyaz on my violin.
Yeah,
I used to play the violin once upon a time.
No, I
My
can
violin is still
say
waiting
you
for
should
me.
keep it up. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think I'm
this is a good
inspired.
example, because until 20 years back when I was in India, many times because of the work schedule and the traffic and traveling to work, after coming back home, I couldn't do my tabla. So there was almost a period of about 8 years, 10 years where I was very minimal with my tabla thing. But when I came back to the UK, first thing was here the weekends are like Saturday and Sunday is definitely the time for you. You don't have pressure of work. That's one good thing. And you don't have to struggle with some of the things that I used to struggle earlier, where, for example, availability of electricity or struggling with some kind of follow-ups with different aspects around us. So that time can better be utilized for your hobbies and your passion. So that actually leveraged me to bring this up again, and I kind of relived those things which earlier were stopped in while I was in India. So that was another factor that I could include it in my daily routines and lifestyle.
So you were saying in India also you've seen wildlife. You have done some photography in India also?
In fact, most of my wildlife photography I've done more in India than outside of India, because first thing is, right from my university college days, I have been into this photography and birding and all. And when we did our first book was Birds of Western Ghats.
Okay.
That was published by Bombay Natural History Society. So during that time when we were working on this book, after finishing work on Friday, me and my co-authors, Dr. Pandey, Satish Pandey, and a few more, we used to rush to areas like Goa or Dandeli or all the Western Ghat locations. And driving Friday evening to those places, we were ready to go in the jungle on Saturday mornings. So it had been our routine that go on Friday, stay over there, morning, get into the jungle, stay for 2 days, do your work, wildlife, and Sunday evening again come back to Pune and then back to work on Monday morning. I've done that many times, going to Belgaum, going to Goa areas, going to Sawantwadi, going to and exploring all the Western Ghat birds there.
Okay, so that is a good grounding for you.
Yeah, and when I was in engineering, I did my engineering from Jabalpur.
Okay.
So Jabalpur was, I was very fortunate because there were 5 national parks around me: Bandhavgarh, Kana, Pech, Panna. So anytime I used to get any free time, I used to rush to these national parks. And I had a very good way to go into that wildlife that time. Most of the resorts, I couldn't afford any of the resorts to go there and stay like a tourist there. So I used to go and help them with different things in their resort to arrange their areas, and to help their guests with some kind of a nature talks and like a naturalist and all. So sometimes I used to get bonus safari rides in the park. So that was a very good way for me. Like people here in the UK, they work part-time when they are studying, right? So this was a kind of a similar model that I used to help them, and they used to help me by taking me inside the park for wildlife.
Okay, that you did as a student.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that was during my engineering studies.
Engineering days.
And I used to do surveys for them. I used to do bird checklists for them. I used to report, take pug marks in plaster cast and these kind of things. So we did a lot of collaborative work that time. It was a give and take kind of a model.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of field experience.
Yes. And this was the time I explored so much of urban wildlife, which was not known to anyone. So much of the wildlife was seen without even going to any national park or a proper sanctuary. This was just like you go to the outskirts of the city. I've seen leopard coming and sitting on the top of a police station near us. And I'm not talking too old. I'm talking of about
during the day.
93s, yes, during the day in Jabalpur. Our engineering college used to be in an area which is slightly outside of the main city, Jabalpur. And there's an area called Khamaria there. And because we knew the territories, once I had seen a leopard coming out and sitting on the top of the police station roof, the ceiling. And we have seen so many instances where we observed wild animals staying in the urban areas, but coming out only when at the time when they know that people are not around or vehicles are not around, because seeing everyday noises and patterns of people's life, they get used to the time where they can be freely moving around and people are not disturbing them. And like leopard is supposed to be the most adaptable cat. And I've seen enough evidences of leopard going slipping through a gap this high. I mean, hardly about a 1 foot kind of a gap under the door. I've seen the leopard crawling and going into a go down and hunting on the goats and chickens sometimes.
And you haven't seen any conflict with people?
I mean, the animals always try to avoid the conflict. Wildlife, or even if you talk of snakes or even if you talk of reptiles, if they feel any vibrations around them, they just move away from that. So probably confrontation is the last resort that both sides have to come to. Before that, there is a lot that the animals automatically take their own path and they go away for that. And even for tigers or leopards, whatever I have come across, I've seen that they respect their territories, but they are not unnecessarily aggressive on anyone. Now we see so many instances where leopards are seen in Nasik areas or around some areas around Pune and all. So this is the area where the encroachment or the urban pressure gets to its highest limit. And then there is nothing left for them but to get into that conflict. So that's really the last resort. But otherwise, they are very adaptable and they find their own ways to live their life. And it was a pleasure talking to you. So nice of you. And anytime you have any queries, more happy to share experiences and share images, videos, anytime you want. Yeah.
Thank you so much.